What is strategy? By the end of this video or podcast, I'm going to give you a definition of what I believe strategy is, and I'm going to give you 3 tips for how to do strategy well for you, whether that's as an entrepreneur, whether that's for as a middle manager, or as an executive of an organization with 10,000 staff. We're going to talk about strategy. I'm Jono White, founder and principal consultant of Clarity. This is the Jono White Leadership Podcast, so welcome. And thank you for subscribing, following, liking, sharing. We work with leaders around the world, and every time you do that, it helps us to help more leaders to become the very best they can be. If you haven't done that yet, then please do click follow, subscribe, like, share wherever you're watching or listening. Help us to get the word out. So what is strategy? I personally love Patrick Lencioni's definition of strategy. He talks about how he was a consultant starting out, working for basically a strategy consulting firm. And he had this epiphany one day. What is strategy? We say we're helping people with it, so let me cut to the chase. Lencioni says, strategy is no more and no less than the collection of intentional decisions you make every day as an organization. Strategy is no more, no less than the collection of intentional decisions you make every day. That's what we mean. When we say strategy, when you boil it down to what it actually is, it's just a collection of the intentional decisions you make. And so, like all things in business and management and leadership, I find a lot of stuff around strategy very unhelpful. Not to pay people out for what they're doing, but just to say, as a leader in business, in not-for-profit, wherever you're leading, don't you want to just do strategy well? And so sometimes we just step back and go, what are we even doing? And that's why I love Patrick Lencioni's stuff so much, because I've used it and found it helpful with the clients that I work with. I've found it helpful as a leader myself, and now I use his frameworks to help leaders to lead their teams and organizations and to become really healthy teams and organizations. And so I love the idea of strategic anchors. And this exercise for me is so powerful because Lencioni basically says, okay, strategy. You know what? Strategy at its core is the intentional decisions we make. Let's start there. So if you want to work out what your strategy is, I said I'm going to give you 3 tips. I'm going to use Lencioni's framework here to help you. And I'm going to say the first tip is, for strategy, is look at what you're already doing. Unless you're starting something brand new and you're coming up with a new strategy, which really is what you're saying is, I'm going to come up with a list of the intentional decisions I'm going to make. What decisions am I going to make? Which is great. You can come up with a list there and you can create things from scratch. But if you're already running a business, if you're already on a team, if you've just transitioned into take over an organization, and you really want to know, I think we have a strategic plan, but what is strategy? Start by looking at the decisions you already make. I do this exercise with teams, and we basically do an amoeba shape. It's a Lencioni exercise, and we just draw and we jot down what are all the intentional decisions we make. What are the intentional decisions we make? I'm not talking about what color pens we have in the next to the photocopier. I'm talking, do we have 1 site or 10 sites? Do we have lots of debt, or do we run a really tight ship and lean ship? Do we focus a lot on our people, or do we have more of a churn and burn system with our people, and we actually focus a lot more on our products? You know, get specific. And you might want to stop this video and do this exercise now. Write out all the list of decisions you make. Let me give you some prompts. People and HR. What are the decisions? How do you do that? Write it down, how you do it. We invest a lot in hiring. We don't invest anything in hiring. You know, how does that fit? HR people. Marketing and sales. What decisions does your organization make around marketing and sales? Customer satisfaction, client satisfaction. If you're in the not-for-profit space, Christian schools, it'd be how satisfied are our parents? What do we do around liaising with parents? For churches, how do we deal with our congregation? How do we liaise with the people in our pews or online? So what do you do around that? Facilities, buildings, debt, facilities, locations. Are you in many countries? 1 country, 1 location. You might want to think about, there's lots of different options, but I guess think about your product offerings. So now I'm struggling to put a word on this, because when I work with schools, we talk about curriculum and pedagogy. How do you do what you do as an organization? You know, what you sell, the service or product. If you're a church, how do you What is it about how you do discipleship? But the church is not a business. Sure, I agree. But there'll be something in how you do discipleship that is probably an intentional decision. So that means you have a strategy. You just don't want to call it a strategy. Let's move on. Maybe as a business, if you have a product or service, how do you do it? If you're a service company, consulting, how do you consult? If you're a software product, what is it about your software products? How do you do it? Are you, price point, are you expensive? Are you cheap? So the point of this exercise is that instead of strategy being we will do this strategic thing, I find it helpful to make it much more practical. What are you currently doing? How nimble are you versus how fast do you move? In terms of your IT, how do you do IT? How do you, how much do you invest in your people? We talked about people. Anyway, there's some prompts, there's some starting points. Let me think if there's anything else that comes to mind. We talked about sales and marketing. Anyway, why don't you stop this video right now, if you're interested, and make a list of a bunch of all the decisions involved in your business, maybe you're an entrepreneur, or across your organization in how you do things, and then restart it when you've done that. Okay, so let's keep going. You've hopefully got a list of a bunch of the intentional decisions. Now what we're going to do is what Lencioni says is basically we're going to look for themes. So I want to look for some common themes. Now the thing with strategy is that what you've listed, this is your strategy. I know it's ugly, but it's the truth. And so at this point, it's important to say, when Lencioni talks about strategy, he talks about differentiating yourself. And so this exercise, yes, we're reflecting on what we currently do, but there's also room to change. And we only want to change where we realize that we're not differentiating ourselves for success in the way we want to. Let me say that again. We're articulating our current strategy, yes, and we might just want to articulate and refine that and keep going. The only reason we would change that is if we realize our current strategy is not differentiating us to be successful, because we need to differentiate ourselves, right? Our intentional decisions are about making decisions to do things in a certain way that's different to our competition. Take Apple. Instead of having 1,000 products, Steve Jobs came in and whittled it down to only a few. That was an intentional decision, wasn't it? There was a lot of people and money that had to be spent, changed hands. That there were some big decisions, but that was an intentional decision that still we see is how is reflected in how Apple does business. So look for themes. Okay, what are some themes that are popping out to you? Is there a theme around how you're very frugal as an organization? Is there a theme around a big focus on IT and technology innovation? Is there a theme around people? Actually, one of the ways that we differentiate ourselves is we invest a lot in our people. I know everyone invests in their people, but we invest a lot in our people. We do it big time. And there might be a certain way that you do it. So you're going to look for themes. So you might want to stop this video now and look for themes. And we're starting to now look at a verb. An example that Lencioni gives is, organization did this, and one of the things was keep prices low. So it's a verb. It might be invest heavily in hiring and in professional development of our people, more than the competition. I know. So you want to have a verb, and then what you're doing, you're looking for themes. You might come up with 5 themes, and then we're going to whittle it down to 3. So stop this video and go and do that now. What is strategy? Okay. You've hopefully done that, and you've pressed play again. And now what you're doing is basically these themes, you're going to whittle it down to 3, and these are your strategic anchors. And it's at this point I want to ask you, is anything missing? If you do these 3 themes that you've come up with, if you focus on these 3 things, and the idea of a strategic anchor is we're saying that whole amoeba of strategy, and even if you go bigger and say everything that you're doing, intentional decisions that you couldn't put on a page, that's your strategy. Is that working? Will that work? Will that differentiate you for success? And if not, what do you need to add? So you might have 3 themes, and you might realize, wow, I don't think this is differentiating us for success. Now's the time to stop and go, what strategic anchor, what theme could we add into how we do it? So get rid of one of them and say, that's not going to be one of our main ones. We're just going to have these 2, and we're going to add this one. What might that be? Maybe for you it's about something to do with innovation in the technology space. Maybe it's about investing in people in a certain way that no one else is. Maybe it's about that curriculum piece for a school that every school talks about, but you've realized maybe that's how we need to differentiate ourselves. Maybe it's about a big focus on sports that's always been there, but it's never been a real focus, and you go, that's big. I don't know, what do you need to do as a strategic anchor? So we're not in the fine detail of the intentional decisions, we're one layer up where we're going, what's the theme? And so the themes here, the 3 strategic anchors, they should differentiate you. That, my friends, is a great way to look at strategy. And those 3 strategic anchors become filters for future intentional decisions. So that as a team, as an organization, when you go, we've had this company come to us and offer for us to buy them out and to acquire them. That's a decision to make. Let's look at our 3 strategic anchors and look at it through that filter. That's the idea of, and that's why I love Lencioni's approach, very practical. If this has helped you to get clear on anything in your leadership around strategy, then comment with the word clarity. Everything we do is about helping leaders to get clarity in their leadership. And thank you again for subscribing, following, liking, sharing. If you haven't done that, it helps us to get the word out there to help more leaders to become the very best they can be. So please do that now. Click subscribe, follow, like, share to help us get the word out to help more people. And it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, wherever you're watching or listening to this. And I look forward to catching you next time. Cheers.